Welcome, welcome everyone. Welcome to tonight's Acts 2 workshop, Maximizing Quality of Life During Late Stage Dementia. Special focus on hospice care. I'm Dr. Rob Glukoff, servant leader of the Acts 2 project and professor, Florida State University College of Medicine. In case you are unfamiliar with the term Acts 2, it stands for African American Alzheimer's Caregiver Training and Support Project 2. Folks, I am very excited about the focus of tonight's workshop. Hospice services are key in supporting the quality of life of loved ones with dementia during the late stage of the condition. Unfortunately, many caregivers do not receive information from their healthcare providers about the wide range of in-home and facility-based services hospice offers. It is also rare for family caregivers to hear firsthand from a caregiver peer about their experiences in using hospice services. Folks, you definitely will get the inside scoop tonight, not only from a caregiver who used hospice in the home, but also from two pastors with significant hospice leadership responsibilities. Audience participants are strongly encouraged to ask questions and provide input during the course of this workshop. Before I introduce this evening's presenters, I want to recognize our partners who have contributed both guidance and resources in the development of Acts 2's Dementia Caregiver Workshop Series. Acts 2's primary collaborators are the Florida State Primitive Baptist Convention, the Florida General Baptist Convention, the Florida Progressive Missionary and Educational Baptist Convention, the African Methodist Episcopal Church, 11th Episcopal District, and the Florida State University College of Medicine's REACH Project. Turning now to tonight's presenters, we have four inspiring speakers: Pastor Dr. Lenny Marshall, Miss Syrita Frinks, Pastor Tracey Mills, and Mrs. Jocelyn Hayden. And I have the distinct privilege of serving as moderator for this evening's workshop. Please permit me just a few words to share just a few words about each of our featured speakers. Our first presenter, Dr. Lenny Marshall, was born in New York City. He received a bachelor's degree in social work and a minor in sociology from dual work at Florida A&M and Florida State Universities. Pastor Marshall later obtained a master's in divinity degree from the Interdenominational Theological Seminary and a doctoral degree in family and marriage therapy from Amridge University. He is currently pastor at St. Philip's AME Church in Tallahassee. His journey in hospice care began in 2008. He subsequently was promoted from having been a part-time chaplain for Big Bend Hospice in Tallahassee to the position of spiritual care development manager, and more recently in 2020 became the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion at the organization. Dr. Marshall strongly believes that with every opportunity comes a chance to make a difference. Facilitating improvement in the lives of others is what drives Pastor Marshall in whatever capacity he finds himself. Our second presenter, Syrita Frinks, was raised in Charleston, South Carolina. Syrita graduated with honors from Low Country Academy in 1994 and immediately went out to make her mark in the world of work. She is currently vice president of Sun City Events and Entertainment, as well as the event manager of the famous Ritz Theater and Museum in Jacksonville, Florida. Syrita's caregiver journey began in 2006 when her mother asked for help in moving her cousin Georgia into assisted living. While getting Georgia settled in her new home, her grandmother Essie came to visit for a few weeks. Essie was in her late 80s and had significant mobility and cognitive issues. At that point, Syrita became a family caregiver of 2 family elders with dementia. Our third presenter, Tracey Mills, is pastor of Collins Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Baldwin, Florida, and outreach program manager of Community Hospice and Palliative Care, headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida. She obtained her Bachelor's of Arts degree in Administrative Management at Tennessee Wesleyan University, and later 2 master's degrees from Liberty University, one in Human Services and a second in Divinity Studies. Folks, her community involvement is extensive. Just a few examples. She currently serves as a member of the Alzheimer's Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Council and the NAACP Health Initiative. Pastor Tracey's hobbies include singing, writing lyrics, and poetry. Last, Mrs. Jocelyn Hayden is outreach coordinator for the Acts 2 project. She obtained her bachelor's and master's degree in social work at Florida A&M University. She's really risen in her involvement at FAMU College of Social Work. She is now a teaching professor at Florida A&M at the social work department. She is also a proud wife of Aaron and mother of her beautiful daughter, Adia. Her passion for teaching, which includes coaching and speaking, provides the opportunity to fulfill her life's mission. And what is that? It's to love God, love people, and love life, all of which she strives to do each and every day. During the course of this workshop, we encourage viewers to share questions to be answered after each presentation using the text message function of Facebook Live. We also will have a 15-minute question and answer period following the last presentation. And now we have Pastor Lenny Marshall. Welcome, Pastor. You are on mute, Pastor.
Good evening, Dr. Glukoff. How are you tonight?
All right. We are blessed to have you here, sir.
I'm glad to be here with you. All right. Good evening, everyone. Tonight I'm going to be covering an aspect of hospice care that speaks to faith, and as it relates to dementia and to caregivers. And I entitled this PowerPoint presentation, Living Life to the Limit by Following Your Faith, because at Hospice, Big Bend Hospice, where I currently work, we definitely believe that there's a direct connection to the trajectory of someone with a dementia diagnosis to one's faith beliefs. So let me expound on that a little further. We believe that your faith, one's faith, supports as much quality of life of the patient and the caregiver as can be expected when one has a diagnosis of dementia. So we'll be going through some slides, and I'll try not to spend too much time on one slide, but I just want to make sure that you get all of the information. So can we have the next slide, please? So let's start off with some information, some background of what our hospice does. We've been doing this for over 35 years. We strive to inspire hope by positively impacting the way our communities experience serious illness or grief. So we seek to inspire one during this time in their life. We know this is a difficult journey at this point in one's life, and so we definitely try to speak to one's strengths. That gives them strengths. We have deep roots throughout 8 counties that we serve. We believe in a holistic approach where we provide quality health care for the whole person. And I'll speak to a little bit of that when it comes to faith in just a minute. we consider the patient and the entire family, not only that dementia patient, but the caregiver, the family as well. We consider them all as a unit of care. We help families make choices about end of life issues, enable the patient and the caregiver to have greater control over their choices because it's all about them and what they believe. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about, let's continue a little bit more of information. We accept patients that usually have a life expectancy of 6 months or less, a terminal illness. We provide assistance to the caregivers. We depend on referrals from caregivers, physicians, anyone who knows a person who has a terminal illness. We seek to provide the care wherever that patient is for as long as they need for that care to be provided. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about the services we offer. We offer hospice services. We recently have incorporated some palliative care services called transition supportive care. We speak to the needs of veterans who are in our program. We provide grief, bereavement services. Big one that I love is the spiritual counseling component. And we also provide complementary therapies in the form of music therapy, pet therapy, therapeutic touch, and other therapies that can support that person, that patient, on their life's journey during this time in their life. Next slide. So let's talk about what our services are meant to do. So we speak to collaboration. We're all about supporting the quality of life. In the case of dementia and the quality of life, there's a correlation, like I said earlier, of all the services of Big Ben Hospice that strive to provide a higher comfort level. For us, it's all about comfort. It's all about speaking to the needs of a patient. And there's a belief that the more comfort, the more peace. Now, from a spiritual perspective, peace ties in directly with faith, which I'll be talking about. Ultimately, it is the faith journey that we seek to be on with that patient. We believe that this faith journey will come with dementia patients to the rescue of our dementia patients and our caregivers. Discovering this faith journey and to walk together with the patient and the caregiver is the ultimate goal of our hospice services to provide the highest quality of life. To us, it's all about faith. So here you have that picture of walking that journey by supporting one's faith. Next slide, please. So I divided this up into three areas. Okay, when we're talking about faith and we're talking about this quality of life for the patient and the caregiver, especially when it comes to dementia, right? And these illnesses that sometimes we cannot see from the outside because we believe, we know that faith, from my perspective, is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things that you cannot see. So you can't necessarily see faith. And sometimes it's hard to see the signs and symptoms of dementia. And so I divide this up into three areas when it comes to faith. So faith developed. And we believe that in the early life, that patients, dementia patients, have incorporated within themselves a belief system that was provided when they very early on in their life, and we try to tap into that, and then we go to the part where after that it's that faith is instilled in that patient. They try to live it out. All right, so we have that faith lived, like little next connection to the next part, which is faith belief. So they're walking in this faith. They're living out this faith that has been instilled in them throughout their life. Then faith believed. At midlife, we believe that, for the majority of people, that belief system, whatever that was instilled in them or whatever they subscribe to, is something that they hold on to. They believe in it. They trust in it. They want it to be there for them when it's needed. So especially during this midlife journey, They tap into what gives life meaning to them, what supports them, what's going to help them. And when the diagnosis of dementia comes along, we believe that that faith belief that has been instilled and lived in that patient carries on with them. During this time, they go from the midlife, they're traveling on this journey to faith shared. They share their beliefs. They maybe go to worship places, houses of worship that support their faith. They surround themselves with people that believe what they believe or support what they believe. And then when they have this diagnosis of dementia, when they come upon this illness, and especially for caregivers and for the patient, they depend on the faith. And that's where we're at when we talk about hospice services, because we understand that a lot of their strength when it comes to dementia depends on what they lean on when it comes to faith. So we call this the faith journey. It's a roadmap created for an intentional part of the plans for one's life. And I came up with that little quote at the bottom. That's how I define that faith journey. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit about faith developed. And I said that in the previous slide. Faith introduced, how faith was introduced to that person, that patient, how it was taught. We try to find that out. What religious or spiritual beliefs were attached to that person and very early in their cognitive development, what faith traditions were exposed, and what they gravitated to, because we believe that those beliefs become part of that innermost dementia patient's being that connect one to their creator. And then we try to find out their religious observances. We speak to the special days that are set apart for that dementia patient, for the caregiver. We want to honor that in our services. We want to make sure that they know that to us that's important because it's important to them. In essence, your faith becomes part of who you are in this stage. So we it's important that we make sure that we know what's important to that patient, that dementia patient, to that caregiver, because we know it's a part of them and it defines their identity. Next slide. So let's talk about faith lived. All right. So I said that's the second part, right? So when you're living out your faith, especially for this dementia patient, that faith will impact their choices. It'll help them to decide what they want to do from day to day. It shapes their emotions. It drives their decisions. That faith, even for a dementia patient, even for the caregiver, gives them direction. Because it's bad. It's awful enough that you have the diagnosis and you're trying to live with dementia. But now, which direction are you going to go? So we believe that that faith, that innermost voice that speaks to you based on what you believe, guides you. And we try to tap into that to help lead you in that direction that you want to go. That faith reminds you of what's important and demonstrates that life is short. So faith, and not to be taken for granted. So we, even with a diagnosis of dementia, we know that every day is an important day. So we try to make the best of every day for that caregiver, for that patient. We try to be there to strengthen and to encourage them during this time. But most importantly, we believe that that faith for that dementia patient and that caregiver teaches love, teaches us, shows us how to love them, how to appreciate them for who they are. In essence, the faith, we believe, aspect is the voice of how one lives their life. And if we can understand that, then we can understand that voice, then we can provide that much more of quality services to speak to that patient and that caregiver. Next slide. Now, during the latter days of a dementia patient, a time, it's been my experiences in hospice when we come to those latter days, we see that that dementia patient and that caregiver and that family really leans and depends on that faith. And so we see signs that that faith, even for a dementia patient, will trigger their memory. We've had patients, right, who've had diagnosis of dementia and that have not done well with remembering a whole lot of things at the latter stages of their life, but let a special song come on or a hymn or something that spoke to them as an early child. They immediately gravitate to that and draw strength from that because that's something they remember based on their faith belief. We have come to experience that faith becomes the strength of caregivers, especially when they're helping dementia patients to make it along the days that they have left. The faith guards their individuality. No patient is the same. No dementia patient reacts the same. No dementia patient has the same trajectory of how that illness is going to affect them. So their faith defines them as an individual on their individual journey based on the diagnosis that they have and how that diagnosis is affecting them. What I like this one about the faith dependent on is the faith highlights their uniqueness. Each patient, each caregiver is different, and we understand that at the services at Big Bend Hospice that we don't treat every dementia patient the same because they're not the same on every caregiver, but we try to tap into the uniqueness of that patient. Faith becomes their medicine. You know, we administer medicine, yes, at the end of life, but sometimes the ultimate medicine for a dementia patient, for a caregiver, is their faith. Faith becomes their confidant. Faith does not judge, and faith maximizes one's legacy. At the end of life, for dementia patients, and when they're leaning on that faith, faith follows them into the next chapter. So when that last day comes for their time down here, whatever it is that they believed in about where they're going next, we try to support and encourage that. In essence, faith overcomes the limitations of any sickness, even dementia, and obstacles that a disease of dementia may introduce. The key here is to respect and recognize the power of one's faith. Next slide. This is my last slide, so I just want to say, as I get ready to wrap up, I think I said this earlier. We walk by faith. I haven't said that. I said faith is the evidence of substance, hope for the evidence of things not seen. But for us, for me, for all of us, I think we all can agree, whatever the faith belief is, whatever that feeds one's spirit, we all can associate ourselves, or we all can connect to this statement. We walk by faith. Dementia patients walk by faith and not by sight. Caregivers walk by faith and not by sight. For us at Big Bend Hospice, our job is to tap into that faith and to walk with them, not by sight. Sometimes we don't see where that faith journey is going to take a dementia patient. Sometimes we don't see where that caregiver is trying to go and providing the best quality care for their loved ones. But whatever it is, we know it's being fueled and energized by what it is that they believe. And it is our job to honor and respect that faith. Because once again, we walk. It's a journey by this faith and not by sight. So I hope that I said something today that's going to help somebody, and from the spiritual aspect of a dementia of helping a dementia patient and a caregiver on this journey. One thing I failed to realize to mention, I want to mention it real quick, is that we honor the cultural faith beliefs of everyone. As Dr. Glukov said, I'm the director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what I have come to understand in this role is that we have a diverse set of faith. We have a diverse set of cultural faith. One culture may not define faith the same as another culture. So one dementia patient may not define based on their culture what faith is to them, but we honor a diverse culture. We honor a diverse set of faith beliefs. We try to be inclusive in all belief systems and all that someone may believe. And then we try to be equitable in providing the same services, the same that we will provide for any culture that comes into our program. So once again, when we're talking about dementia, we're talking about an inner voice. We're talking about something that we may not necessarily see, but when it comes to faith, we're talking about the same thing. So if we can tie those two together, we can make the experience of the end of life that much better for that patient and that caregiver. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pastor Lenny. That was an inspiring presentation. I love the message of faith teaches love. It leads us to love. We manifest our
Absolutely.
faith in love and the uniqueness of each person with dementia. Have one question for you, I believe.
All righty.
SB, here we go. We have one from Jessica Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
Let me read this to you. What are some ways, Pastor, to reframe the idea of hospice to those who believe that they are to live as long as possible and that God will decide when it is time?
Excellent question, Jessica, and so glad that you asked that. So I think when we're talking about reframing the idea of hospice, it starts with the conversation. We go into these services. We call upon hospice services when it's decided that we need to bring them into the picture. But how we introduce hospice is the key. So for some, we just say, "Oh, it's time for hospice to come in," and we don't even prepare the patient to where they are at that point in their life. So when we talk about reframing how we introduce hospice and bring hospice into the picture, you're right. It starts out with tapping into or speaking to what it is that gives them strength at this time in their life. So when we talk about reframing it and talking about God, and we first have to find out what it is that that patient attaches themselves to that gives their spirit strength, and then we focus on that. We ask questions. Where do they think they are at this point in their life when it comes to their relationship with the Lord? And then along the line, we bring into hospice. So we don't start out with that hospice discussion. We circle back to it.
So we have one more question for
Mhm,
you, Pastor. We'll have more time. I know that several of us have
mhm,
questions at the end of the fourth presentation when we all meet as a panel to
mhm,
address those with you. But here's Leslie Diane Provost's question. What
mhm.
are the areas or counties served by Big Bend Hospice?
Okay, so we serve 8 counties. We serve Leon County, Jefferson, Madison, Taylor counties. We serve Wakulla, Franklin counties, um, and Gadsden and Liberty County. So we serve an 8 county North Florida area is our territory.
Well, thank you so much, Pastor, and we look forward. And thank you. Here's an affirmation for you, Dr. Lenny Marshall. You truly are an inspiration.
Well,
I'll
thank you
say
so much.
I'll say an amen to that, and a thank you from you.
Thank you for
Yes,
allowing me to be here. I'm glad to speak to this.
an
Thank you.
outpouring of appreciation for you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
And now we have Miss Syrita Frinks.
Well,
So
hello, Dr. Lee.
welcome. We are so grateful to have you here and to learn about your experience with your dear grandmother, Essie.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be able to talk about it. I know we have a time limit, so I'm going to try my best to get through this as we go. The title of my presentation is called Flowers Up Front. And for some people, that rings a bell immediately, but I'd like to do a little explaining if it doesn't. One of the things that we know happens when a person passes on is that everybody sends flowers. And one of the sayings that kind of goes along with that is that I'd like to have my flowers up front, give them to me while I can enjoy them, while I can see them, while I can smell them, while I can feel them. So, in my opinion, the caregiving journey is an opportunity for giving our flowers up front. So here we have a couple of pictures of me and my grandmother, and it kind of runs the timeline from her helping to take care of me to there, of course, me helping to take care of her. Next slide. Dr. G gave a great explanation of how I came to be a caretaker for my grandmother. So I'd like to take an opportunity to tell you a little bit about the amazing woman that my grandmother was. Miss Essie Patterson was with us from 1917, which is prior to birth certificates, and she was very proud of it, up until the ripe old age of 97, which was in 2014. And as I stated earlier, I originally was helping with caretaking for 2 family members, kind of unbeknownst to us. And my grandmother is the one who was at home with us. My cousin was in an assisted living facility, which was amazing. But the taking care of my grandmother at home gave us the opportunity to give her what she wanted, which was to spend her final time with us. So in 2006 is when we became caregivers. And as I said, her passing in 2014 means that we were doing it for a good long time. And as you can see here, my grandmother was a classy lady and clearly an educator, because most of these are school pictures. So a lot of her dementia led into teaching and educating and being there to provide information to enlighten and encourage her community. Next slide. So when we started down the caretaking journey, it was what I like to call the early years. And life was kind of easy for us at this point. There were a couple of us taking care of her. She would spend some months with my uncle, some months with my mom, and I kind of jumped into pinch hit where possible. And we did a lot of traveling and spending time visiting with family members, which is what you see here in these pictures, are just us taking her to do some of the things that were most important to her, like going to basketball games or going to attend community events and festivals, or going to the AKA Boule, because she was not going to miss a single solitary meeting. So we took it upon ourselves to make sure that she was able to do those things and spend the time that she needed to. Next slide. As we progressed forward in the years, we realized that carrying the load was going to be a little bit hard. We needed to expand our caretaker group, so to speak, because working from home and taking care of someone in their 90s, as well as someone in their 70s, both having dementia, was a little bit of an undertaking for just my mother, my brother, and I. So in these pictures, you can see where we expanded that circle and we continued to do some traveling, continued to do things to keep my grandmother active and in the community. And that bottom right picture there is one of her and my brother after a hard day's work registering voters. My grandmother had always worked at the polls. So when President Obama came to office for the second term around, she helped with doing voter registration. At this point, she was clearly well into her 90s. And as you can see, they'd had a long day and needed a nap. And we all can relate to that as caretakers. Those days are kind of long, and that's the way that you feel. You just want to curl up and get a good nap in. Next slide. So from that point, we realize as we're going through this process that we're approaching what is for us a more daunting part of things, where we're getting to the point where mobility is a bigger concern, getting to doctor's appointments is a bigger concern, determining what to do with the property that she owned in South Carolina was an issue now that she's in Florida with us full time. And this is where wills, final wishes, and thank God for hospice came into play for our family. And we really thought we had it in hand until Miss Regina Walls, our hospice worker, came in to meet with us, and we realized how much more help there was that was available to us just by taking the time to sit down with her and get an understanding of what the hospice services were, how they would be able to help us, and how they could assist us with getting through some of those other things like the wills and the final wishes and the collecting of memories and stories and recipes, and even the simple things like doctor visits or respite stays, which is when you need a break or they need a break and a change of pace. And there's a facility that's available to take them maybe for a long weekend so that you yourself can have a little bit of time to yourself, which as caretakers, we know is amazingly important. I will say that when we first started with hospice services, the family had some concerns. It was the big scary thing because as far as we knew, hospice meant that there was limited to no time left. And we got an understanding by going through the process that not only does it mean that there may be plenty of time left, but it means that we're prepared for when the time does come and that someone is there with us to get through that, to make sure that she's as comfortable as possible and to make sure that we could continue to give her those flowers in a timely fashion. I would be remiss in saying that if I did not say that Regina was like an angel for us because she told us the things that we didn't know that we should know. And I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are right now shaking your head going, if somebody could have told me some of these things right up front, how much easier would things have been? And I can say that hospice gave us the opportunity to get all of that information right up front and to figure out ways to do things to carry on legacy, to carry on taking care of her and giving her all of those flowers right up front, right down to the idea of what medications did she need to take, how often should she be taking baths, and making sure that we had people to come in and assist us with those things when it got to the point where we weren't able to handle it on our own. I do not think that I could possibly find enough words to say how important it is to work on all of these things, the wills, the final wishes, the hospice, when do you think it should happen? Or even if you find yourself in a circumstance where you know you're going to need it, start talking early. So that way you are able to do some of those things that will become woulda, coulda, shouldas had you not had those moments. Next slide, would love to also make the final suggestion that in thinking about what to do for hospice and your loved ones as you're taking care of them, to consider the legacy that is left behind and to also consider doing that life planning, that end of life planning ahead of time. Make it common conversation. I know that the question was asked, how do we make the hospice discussion something that's a little more simple? In my family, I've become the person that makes sure we do it. We talk about our final wishes. We talk about the wills. We talk about hospice. We talk about where we want to stay. What is it that we want to have happen after we are gone? And we do it much like open enrollment happens at your job. You know, November comes around, and if there's any big changes that need to happen, I send out an email and my family responds. I've become the person that is the keeper of all the documents. So if there's any questions, we're able to answer those right out there in the beginning and get that taken care of. It makes life easier. It makes those conversations easier. And I think as you go through the process, if you start having those conversations as early on as possible, then you're able to make sure that one, your family is well prepared whenever it happens, and two, that your final wishes are met in the way that you want them to be met. So it takes the sting out of the planning. We know that dying is going to happen, but being prepared for it doesn't mean that it happens faster. It just means that when it does, it doesn't knock you as far off your feet as it most possibly could. So I guess that's the one thing that I would leave you with, is to do the planning, make the talk commonplace. Do it whenever anyone gets married, whenever anyone has a baby, whenever big life changes. If you would change your insurance or your beneficiaries, then have the conversation then. Make it as common a conversation as family reunions and Thanksgiving dinners. So that way you take the sting out of it. And we all know that planning for what happens at the end doesn't mean that you're running towards it. It just means that you have more time to enjoy the end because you're already prepared for it when it gets there. And I think I may have finished a little bit early. So
Well, if length of time is the criterion, that's really, to be honest, diminishes, uh, the just from my point of view, whether it was 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15, the pearls of wisdom that you've shared with us outweighs anything that
thank you.
criterion that you might have about the length of time. At any rate, Leslie Diane Provis has an affirmation for you. Thank you so incredibly much for sharing your heart.
Anytime. It is my pleasure.
Beautiful, beautiful work. Jessica Marshall is sharing with you. I have a question for you, Syrita.
Yes.
What were the key lessons that you learned in living with your dear grandmother, during the latter portion of her life?
I would say some of the key things, well, actually, there are two or three of them. The first two are phrases that have become kind of roots for us as a family. One of them is that every day is a bonus, so that you wake up and treat it that way. And the other one is to call a thing a thing. So that way, whatever it is, you have the ability to understand it as clearly as you most possibly can, simply by defining it and claiming it to be what it is. I will also say that one of the things that I learned dealing with dementia was that sometimes you just got to go with the flow because it's going to change in a couple of minutes anyway. It's not worth the argument. Have the conversation as though you are whoever you are at that moment and whoever you will be in the next moment, and cherish them each as they come along.
Thank you, Syrita. One more question for you. What specifically did hospice do? And I know you focused on Regina Walls from Community Hospice and Palliative Care. What specifically did hospice do to increase your grandmother's quality of life?
Specifically, I would say helping us with making sure that the home was the best place for her to be and the safest place for her to be, making sure she had the hospital beds, the walkers, a bedside table, doing things like helping to assess whether or not we needed to put in grab bars, and if so, where, helping to coordinate her doctor's visits, physical therapy, and things like that happening inside the home versus us having to take her out for appointments once mobility was an issue, helping with her medications and making sure that the changes were done appropriately and that they were current. And also helping us with other just information that you wouldn't even think of, like nutritional facts and what's the best machine to actually cut up her food when she forgets to chew. How do we work on, making sure that she's taking her meds on time and those kinds of things. Just simple stuff that some of it we didn't even realize we needed help with until the help showed up.
Wow. What a blessing hospice appears to have been for you, for Grandma Essie and the family.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Syrita. That was clearly a very informative and moving presentation.
Thank you.
And now we have Pastor Tracey Mills. Welcome, Pastor. You're on mute, Pastor. There you go. Thank you, Pastor. We're glad to have you back again. What a great blessing to have you here.
This is my second home.
Oh, we're thankful you feel that way.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see your face in this virtual space. I am Pastor Tracey. I am with Community Hospice and Palliative Care of Northeast Florida, and I'm glad that you are joining us. Next slide, please. As a child, I would hear the word hospice, and we would visit family members. I would always hear the word hospice. And I thought as a child that hospice was a place for sick people. And I later found out that hospice is for sick people, but hospice is the level of care, the level of comfort care that one receives when they are ill, terminally ill, or chronically ill. And that's what community hospice does. We provide comfort care. Some of the information that I'm sharing, it was already shared with by Dr. Wallace, but I want to share information in reference to as it relates to community hospice. Community hospice and palliative care is a nonprofit organization which provides comfort care and compassionate care for you, your loved one, family, or friend. It is an experimental team that works together. That's a good thing. That's why you receive quality care, because it's a team, not just one individual, but a team that works together. Community hospice has been servicing the community for 43 years. Now, the community hospice actually started in 1979. We served over 220,000 adults and children in over 16 counties. That's correct. Counties in the north central of Florida, Gainesville, Lake City, Palaca, and surrounding communities. We provide a team that can serve you, your loved one, and your family holistically. We can maximize his or her quality of life by providing services. Listen to this, whether you're in a nursing home facility, independent living facility, or in-home nursing care. Services for those who have Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance, no insurance. Guess what? We provide services for you. So even if you don't have insurance, that's no issue for community hospice, because we're a nonprofit and it's all about we're serving you regardless of your economic status. So what services do we provide? We provide services such as palliative care. Now, palliative care is available at any stage of any illness. You can elect palliative care while receiving curative treatment. Palliative care also works alongside with your primary care physician instead of replacing them. Then you have spiritual support, which Dr. Wallace talked about. We have medical equipment and supplies. Then you have bereavement counseling. You have bereavement counseling before, during, and 13 months after your loved one has transitioned. We provide music, speech, massage, and pet therapy. We have dietary counseling for you. We have advanced care planning for you. Now, my question is, if something should happen to you, would your loved one know your wishes? That's a question, right? So then what we do, we help you. We have the information, we have the paperwork so that you and your loved one can make sure that all of that is in order. Community hospice aims to present for you and your loved one. We want to be present for you, your loved one, family, and friend. Your next slide, please. Here's a quote. We must be silent before we can listen. We must listen before we can learn. We must learn before we can prepare. We must prepare before we can serve. We must serve before we can lead. Facing chronic or terminal illness can be taxing mentally, emotionally, and physically. To know that he or she has family and friends present to listen, to serve, to support, and comfort, guess what? That is beneficial. Community hospice and palliative care would like to be a healing present for you, your loved one, and family. Not only does community hospice want to be a healing present, we all should want to be a healing present for those that we love. Next slide, please. Here's a book here. It's called The Art of Being a Healing Presence. This book is a very good book. If you don't mind, I want to say, can we talk? Can we have a conversation? The conversation I want to have is to be present is more than occupying space. I just said something. Being present is more than occupying space. To be present is simple, but it does mean that it's not necessarily easy. So we have to be clear on what we're talking about. Let's be clear that healing is about something more than curing. Healing is more than providing a remedy or fixing something. It's more than eliminating his or her disease, or can I say dis-ease? Next slide, please. Here's a definition for you. The definition of healing presence is the art of being consciously and compassionately in the present moment with another. When you are completely present, you stay aware of each unfolding moment. You give yourself fully to the present, letting go of what was and choosing not to anticipate what will be. So the definition implies that he or she is present and connected to the individual, mind, soul, and spirit. That you and I are physically, mentally, and emotionally, we should be engaged with the individual. That he or she is listening to what is being said without judgment, without any preconceived thought. You are there. In other words, you're all in. Next slide. So what is my story? I'm glad you asked. Nothing is more rewarding to me than serving my congregation, sharing the message of hope, love, compassion, strength, while igniting faith. So, Pastor T, what's your story? Well, about a month ago, I lost my beloved member that she passed. But I remember when she came to Collins Chapel, she announced that she was coming back home. She looked around and saw that my membership was lacking, but she said, Pastor, I'm coming back home and I'm going to bring my family to make sure they join this church. And guess what? They did. Then, as time progressed, her daughter, who was a member of the church, she called and said, Pastor, my mother's in the hospital. I had a conversation with the daughter, and when I got to the hospital, I had a conversation with the mother. And she was walking and talking, and over a period of time, she ceased communicating, and I began to communicate and listen to her daughter. Her mother at this time remained unresponsive for several weeks. Sometimes we said nothing while I was there. The mother was again non-responsive. Periodically, I would walk to her bed while she was in the hospital and touch her hand. Just softly place my hand on her hand. And she made me aware that she knew somebody was there. Sometimes I would talk with the daughter, and sometimes we said nothing. Sometimes we sat for hours and we said nothing. But guess what? I was present. My phone was off. I didn't have my laptop. My member, that person, this individual, had my undivided attention. There is a character in a book by the name of Job. Job lost everything, lost his family, loved one, and his friends came to sit with Job, and they sat with Job for 7 days, and they said absolutely nothing. My friend, that's healing presence. That's an example of healing presence. Ladies and gentlemen, you that are here on virtual space, I want you to know that caring and serving require that we give our undivided attention to our family, to our friends, to our loved ones, to those that are hurting, to those that are suffering, to those that are battling with debilitating illnesses. A healing presence is not about healing the person, but about connecting with the individual. Healing is not about healing the body, but it's about being complete, about being whole. I look within so I will not have to be without. In other words, I'm taking the opportunity to connect with that person. Now, the person doesn't necessarily be sick, but you can activate a healing presence with anyone. All you have to do is connect and be available. Next slide. So you ask, who can be a healing presence? Good question. Anyone who is willing to be, as I like to say, all in. Anyone who's willing to be present. Anyone who's willing to navigate him or her into their wholeness. Anyone who's willing to open themselves up. Anyone who's willing to be intentional. That's the word. Intentional about being available. Anyone who's willing to show individuals dignity, value, and honor them. Have you noticed that when you go and visit someone who is ill, they are, when you go into the hospital, they are laying down in a bed and you are standing up over them. So therefore, it may present an easiness for them because now they're on their back, but you're looking up. So now what we have to do is become and lower and humble ourselves and get on the same playing field, same level. So we are exercising a healing presence. Anyone who's willing to give what they have, no matter how big or how small it is. Guess what? You don't need a degree in order to be present. You don't have to have permission to be a healing present. Just be present. Next slide. Active listening is more than hearing someone's word. It involves the goal of the understanding the views of that individual, the feelings of that individual, of that person that's speaking. It is being in touch with every gesture. When I was visiting my member, when I touched her hand, they said she won't respond. But when I touched her hand, there was an awareness. Active listening is being attentive, avoiding multitasking. You have to have eye contact. Even when, guess what? You can utilize active listening with your family, with your spouse, with your children. Eye contact, letting them know that I see you and I hear you, and I'm not going to be swayed in another direction. I'm all in. Allow a period of silence. It's not so much what they do say, but sometimes it's about active listening of what they don't say. Have you ever met people that say, I went to school at such and such? That's what they said, but they didn't say they graduated from that school. Active listening, allow expressions of feelings, watch the mood, the tone, the nuances. Be all in. Next slide, please. Step to being a healing present. Open yourself up. Those when people are battling with sickness, they want you to be present. They should be the center. They should be your focus. Open yourself up. Be aware of your surroundings. Are you there, or is your mind somewhere else? Are you there? Are you thinking about what you're going to cook at home? Intend to be a healing presence. Be intentional. Be intentional. Prepare a space. Prepare a space within yourself. In other words, in order to be a healing presence for someone else, you have to become a healing presence for yourself. So you can't give what you don't have. Be a healing presence for yourself so you can be a healing presence for someone else. Prepare a space for self and make room for someone else. I just said something there. I said prepare a space for self and make room for someone else. I'm not preaching, I'm just talking with a lot of excitement. Because when we're dealing with those that are in hospice or dealing with dementia, we have to be all in. We have to be present. We have to be able to hear and be able to be flexible and be able to adjust our schedules for those that we love. Next slide. Listen and silent are spelled with the same letters. Think about it. My time is up, and I thank you for yours.
Thanks so much, Pastor Tracey.
Thank
It's
you.
clear to me that nothing's more important than reverential listening. We have an affirmation for you. The definition of healing presence was so powerful.
Yes.
Thank you, Jessica Marshall.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you.
we also have a question for you, Pastor.
Absolutely.
Is there a similar community hospice in or near Pensacola?
We go all the way up to McIntosh County, as low as Hernando. We're the north central area is where we are. 16 counties: Coffee, Bacon, Atkinson, Pierce. You name it. We're over 16 counties. So I don't know if that's near.
I think what they're wondering is in the Western Panhandle.
Okay.
Is there a hospice or community hospice or an organization that you might recommend?
No, I know that I'm not familiar with that area. Dr. G, I apologize for not doing that, but I do know that we are just the north central area. But it's a lot of hospice you find hospice almost anywhere now.
Well, Ms. Provost, we can, if you wish, please give us your contact information in the chat and we'll reach out to you. All right, just a quickie question. Another affirmation for you. You rock the house. Well, you know what I'm going to do, Pastor, is I'm going to shift to Jocelyn Hayden, and I'll keep my question for the panel discussion. Thank you so much. What an amazing presentation. That was great. And now let's hear from Jocelyn Hayden.
Hey, Dr. Rob.
Thank you. We're looking forward to your presentation, Jocelyn.
Glad to be here. All right, so I'm just excited to be here, and we've heard so many amazing speakers. I've learned so much just listening in the background, so thank you all for that. And we'll go to the next slide. So I'm just going to share some information with you about Acts 2 and how we happily serve all of Florida, and we have 3 primary objectives I want to share with you tonight. And so one of those is to increase dementia awareness and to provide knowledge. We do that through presentations, as what we're doing tonight, through social and print media, through workshops at different venues, community faith and elder care services, and so things like that. The second thing that we do, the second goal, is we provide brief telephone-based problem-solving consultation and referral services to African Americans as well as other stakeholders. That's beautiful because since the pandemic, we've kind of broadened our horizons. And so if you're not African American caregiver, but you're a caregiver, we can still help you to solve that problem or to help you over the phone, briefly consult or offer referrals in your community. And so we're here for you, period. And so the third objective that we offer is we want to provide faith-integrated skill training and support to distressed African American caregivers. And that's the ones that I love the best. So let's go to the next slide to talk about that a little bit more. All right, and so our Acts 12 session program is one of my favorites because I get to sometimes facilitate that program. And so in the program, you have 12 skill building sessions and you have 5 individual sessions. And in each session, you have 3 amazing caregivers. So it's not just you, but you also have 2 other people that can help you with wisdom, help you through the phases of caregiving with your loved one. And so each session is delivered weekly over the telephone and is toll free. So it makes it also convenient for you. It's via the phone, via a trained lay pastoral care facilitator. Okay, and I love that. And I also enjoy that those 5 individual sessions we mentioned earlier, those sessions are really for goal setting. They help you solve problems, whether personal, whether with your care recipient. So that's also amazing. Next slide, please. Now, this part is near and dear to my heart as a facilitator because we kind of dig a little bit deeper into what those modules or those skills, those trainings look like. And so one of those things will be basic characteristics of dementia. And when I say basic, sometimes we feel like, oh my gosh, am I forgetting? I don't know where my keys are. I remember being on my telephone and thinking, where is my cell phone at? And so those things are normal forgetting. That is okay. So we go over dementia one-on-one and what it looks like. Now, like Syrita mentioned earlier, now if your mom is one of those jazzy, love to get dressed, hat, gloves, matching purse, matching shoes, matching suit every Sunday, and then she forgets what that looks like, or she no longer does that, then that's something we want to look into, okay? I remember facilitating a group with relaxation, and it was 2 caregivers in that group, and we just kind of read an exercise very softly, very calmly, and they listened, and it was very quiet in the background. And the caregiver went to sleep. She had not relaxed in so long. So we teach you how to do that. How do I relax? How do I be calm as a caregiver? There's so much going on around me. Effective thinking, right? The difference in effective and effective is our response. How am I responding to the way I'm thinking? Thoughts come in our mind automatically, so quick, but how do I respond? How do I get to point A and then get to point B, and then hopefully at C, I can change my consequence. So point A may be, I'm waking up, it's Monday morning, I just don't feel it, I don't want to be here, oh gosh, it's Monday, right? That's A. But I can get to B, and I have 2 options. I can either respond and say, oh, here we go, let's ready for work, let me get my coffee, it's Monday. Or I can say, you know what, I am happy to see today, let's get it moving. And so my C changes based off my B. And so we're working with how to think effectively, how do we respond in a better manner. Okay, next slide, please. Another one that I love too is building in pleasant daily activities. That is important. If you are a caregiver or not, you need those breaks. And so for me, I love just walking and praying. You know, if that's 15 minutes a day, or listen to gospel music, or having a treat, or just sitting down and breathing, meditating, taking some breaths. And so we help with the caregiver hey, you need a break. You need to make sure you have time for yourself. I think Pastor Tracey mentioned that too. It's hard for me to care for anybody if I'm not taking care of myself. And so we really encourage that. It helps your emotional well-being. It helps you to be able to calm down, helps you be able to just deal with another day, another hour, another minute, even to go day by day. And so we really push building those times to be able to sit down and listen. We also really incorporate in our sessions, which I love too, is communicating effectively with a care partner or either with a family or health professional. That's important because we're learning how to be assertive, how to speak our truth and love with respect, not passive. Well, I don't say anything. Oh, woe is me. I don't want to, ruffle any feathers, or I don't want to be either aggressive where I'm just disrespectful or I'm just saying what I want to say. But I want to be assertive. How can I effectively communicate what I need to these people? And so we teach those. And we also teach developing effective problem-solving skills through personal goal setting. And that goes back to that 5 session we talked about earlier. You get 5 one-on-one sessions with your facilitator to help you with those personal goals, to help you walk through for 5 sessions from A to Z. How do I get there? And what do I do in between as you talk it through with the facilitator that's trained over the phone? Isn't that awesome? So that's a big part of our modules. Next slide. And so I want to share with you a few of our resources. You can find us on our website too. These are national, local, and state resources. We have Alzheimer's Association, Alzheimer's Foundation of America, Florida Department of Elder Affairs, which you can find these all over the country. Elder Helpline, Elder Care Locator, and Alzheimer's Disease Education and Referral Center. These are great because they have websites and toll-free numbers. So I know somebody mentioned, hey, is this in Pensacola? You're going to find these everywhere that you need them. And so these are great resources for you as well. So next slide. All right. And so this is really important. One of the reasons that we're here is to hear information, but also we want to make sure that you have a gate or you can walk through a door as well that we can help you with. And so with ACTS, we have several ways to contact us. We have our toll-free number, 1-866-778-2724, our local number here in Tallahassee and surrounding counties. You can email our coordinator, who's amazing, Tanika Norton at tnnorton@fsu.edu, and our amazing website. So let's go to the website really quickly to walk you through some of those tabs so you know kind of what to do when you get there. So let's pull it up. Let's go ahead and click the link on the website. So as we're pulling that up, we'll talk about a few of the tabs and what they house so you know how to get to where you want to be. And so if you're looking at the website, this is our homepage. At the top of that, you see the different tabs. And so let's go to caregiver resource, please. And we'll look at that one. And so on this, you can see that there are caregiver prayers, there are fact sheets, information to help you as a caregiver and for your recipient. For example, if your mom or dad is dealing with incontinence, or if you're having issues with sleeping through the night with your loved one, you can find some articles here that's going to help walk you through those things. All right, let's go to donate. Let's do that one next. Let's do that. And so this is a good page because this is opportunity to help with funding or to help if you want to donate or if you want to visit the page to just learn who we are a little bit more so that you know what you're donating to. So it gives you different ways to donate on this page and just gives you the spiel of why donate to us. What does it go toward and how it's just helping caregivers? Because what we do with ACTS too, it's all free. And so the donations and grants and foundations is how we are funded. And so this is a page that if you want to pass on for donations, you can do that. And let's try the sign up, please. Let's do the sign up tab so you can see how to sign up to be a part of ACTS. And so this page is very simple. The email comes right to Tamika. She forwards it down the line to who needs to go to, and you will be contacted within 28 to 48 hours, more so 24 hours. And so you can sign up here, information here, questions, even comments, even if you're interested in being a caregiver, even if you just want to talk about it and see if it's good for you, we can do that too. It's no obligation. We would love to have you, but no obligation. And so that's what this website is for. Get on it, scroll through it. If you have any questions for us, or if we can help you with anything, again, African American or not, if you're a caregiver, we're here to help walk you through that process of that journey. And so we're here for you. So if no other questions or if no other concerns, or if you want to do that later, we're going to go ahead and get ready to go to our panel discussion. And so thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, each of you, for your outstanding presentations. I have a feeling we could go for another 2 or 3 hours if we had the time. It's just so compelling. These presentations were very well developed and really touched our hearts. I do have a few comments and questions, I believe, from the audience, and I have a few that I'd like to bring to the table. Well, first, here's a question from Jessica Marshall. What is the best way to refer a caregiver to this program? I'm going to start with you, Jocelyn, and then I'll turn it over to Pastor Lenny and Pastor Tracey Mills for their programs.
Okay, definitely. So for the Acts 2 program, on that slide we saw a few minutes ago, also, you can also connect with me as well, but to call on the phone number or to use that website to put a question or a comment in and let us know what it is that you need assistance with. And we can reach them, or if you want us to call them, we can call them as well personally. We don't mind doing that either. Also use Facebook Messenger, use this comment, but definitely reach out to one of us and we'll help you walk through that.
Then Pastor Lenny.
I would say the best way to refer someone to Big Bend Hospice is to go to our website at www.bigbendhospice.org. And there it'll give you some options on how you can refer, whether you want to call, whether you want to put something in our email. We have a chat feature in the email, or whether you want to come in and do a personal referral. So there's options on the website. And so just go to www.bigbendhospice.org for all that information.
Pastor Mills?
You can call 904-268-5200, 904-268-5200, or go to communityhospice.com or go to Community Hospice Facebook page. Either one. So you have three options there. 904-268-5200, communityhospice.com, Community Hospice Facebook page.
Okay, a question for you, Pastor Lenny, and Pastor Mills. There was a reference to team members that compose the hospice service unit. What are the team members and their disciplines that you bring to the table for loved ones with dementia and their family caregivers needing hospice care?
So for us at Big Bend Hospice, every patient is assigned a team which is composed of a physician, a nurse, a social worker, a spiritual care counselor, a bereavement counselor, and one of the complementary therapies that we offer, whether it be music therapy or pet therapy, some of the complementary therapy. So we have a holistic team that tries to speak to all of the needs of the patient in that way.
Thank you. Pastor Tracey?
We offer the same. We also offer, I was going to say, I know you said the bereavement, but we also offer chaplains also that made available to each individual that is under our care. But everything that he said, we also have the same. And these are a team that is available around the clock for your family and for your loved one.
I have a question for Syrita Frinks. Oh, we have Jessica. Go ahead, bring on Jessica's first, and then I'll ask Syrita. Jessica has, thank you for your contributions, Jessica Marshall. Great questions and affirmations. How do we have a discussion of hospice sooner rather than later? I think many patients can have a greater quality of life if it's discussed earlier in the course of the late stage of the illness. Let's hear from you first, Syrita Frinks.
Like I said, one of the things we do in our family is each kind of nucleus has a person who's designated to be the person that keeps track of that stuff. So for my side of the family, it's me, which means I have a fireproof safe. I have copies of the 5 wishes. I have copies of everybody's wills. I've had discussion with pretty much every person about what they would like to happen when the end comes. Do they want to be buried? Do they want to be cremated? Who gets the ashes? Do you want them scattered? My brother intends to grow a tree. It's one of those things that's become common conversation for us because we do it at common periods. We talk about it when open enrollment happens. We talk about it when people get married. We talk about it when they have babies. We talk about it when somebody gets sick. Any of those things that may potentially lead there, we try to get it out and in the open early on. So there's no stigma with it. Our babies grow up knowing that the expectation is for them to plan for themselves, because we can't make sure you get what you want if you don't tell us what you want.
Wow. Thank you. I have another question for you folks. I'm going to start with Pastor Tracey this time. Pastor Tracey, if I'm a family caregiver of a loved one with dementia that who passes, post, who passes during hospice care, am I able to obtain services for myself after my mom or dad pass with those with dementia?
Absolutely. Community hospice provides, after your loved one has transitioned, we provide bereavement care for 13 months after. So therefore, you and your loved ones, your family, have access to talk with a counselor. And the counselors at community hospice, they send letters, make phone calls, and then you also can come in and have a session to help you go through that grieving process. So yes, it is made available to you and your loved one, your family. Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. Marshall, same question.
So, Dr. Glukow, can you repeat that question for me?
Yeah, what if a caregiver whose loved one passes, are there services available to the caregiver for bereavement following the loss of their loved one in hospice?
Absolutely. So during that, of course, we know that is the most difficult time of the process, is that end of life. And so we ensure that we have those bereavement counselors, and what we do at Big Bend Hospice is we do some cross training for all the team. So all the team is equipped to provide this grief counseling or these grief services in different forms to help that caregiver who's left to deal with that with that loss. So we take those services very seriously, because we understand at that point, when that patient leaves, when that patient passes, the most crucial point of the whole process is our response to that. And we have to make sure that we have those grief services in different forms that look differently, whether it be spiritual grief counseling, or whether it be social grief counseling, or whether it's from one of our nurses, because we don't know what the need is going to be, but we make sure that we're prepared to provide it, whatever it is.
No, I wanted to ask you, Jocelyn Hayden, as a facilitator for Acts 2 in your group, after the program ends or services are provided, what happens for the caregiver after that point? Can they still remain in touch with Acts 2?
We actually encourage it if the caregiver would like to keep in contact with a facilitator so that we know what's going on. We can help throughout the rest of the journey through the phases. We can know what's going on with their recipient as well. And so we actually encourage that if they don't mind.
Okay, thank you. I know that we've gone for a little while here. It's 26 after 8. It's been just a very moving workshop. I was personally touched. I think we do have time for one final thought from each of you. Your final thought, please, Syrita Frinks.
Take the lead and make it a normal thing to talk about what happens when we get to the end. And remember that every day is a bonus.
Jocelyn Hayden.
I think mine comes to everybody else's is just take care of self, enjoy what you can in that process, and just don't take that loved one for granted.
Thank you. Pastor Tracey Mills. You're on mute. There you go.
Be a healing present for yourself so that you can be a healing present for someone else.
Amen. Thank you. And Pastor Marshall, final thought, please.
I would say that holistic living directly equates to holistic planning. So let us plan to live the best life we can. So when that time comes for us to leave, we're ready to go.
I have a final thought, and I just wanted to thank the panelists for the time and energy that they put into making this one outstanding workshop in an area that is largely neglected in, to be quite frank, in the dementia care domain. We need to hear more about hospice, palliative care, and I'd like to punctuate the importance of hearing from the caregiver herself and judicatory leaders, pastors who are working in the community of hospice care, who are speaking to the needs of the Black community that needs to understand and needs to be fully aware of the efforts that are being made in the hospice care community to be culturally responsive to the needs of minority persons with dementia and their family members. So I just thank you for this important workshop. Just a plug. Oh, here's Leslie Diane Provis. She also wants to give a thank you to Tamika Norton Brown for keeping connected. We thank you, Leslie Diane Provis, for being connected to us. A little plug for our next workshop. I think you might find this interesting. Our next workshop will focus on creative caregiving, particularly using innovative ways to meet the needs of loved ones with dementia while enhancing self-care. And we soon will announce the date for this workshop in the Acts 2 Caregiver Project Facebook work site. Thank you once again to our panelists. Thank you to the audience. Thank you to Jessica Marshall and to the other contributors. I also want to thank Miss Espy Nadombe, and Melissa Powell. If I don't know if you're comfortable with this or not, but please give a handshake to the audience. Can you join us? Please come aboard if you can. If not, that's okay. I just want to thank you. Oh, good. We got.
Hi.
Thank you, Espy. Great job
Yeah.
in coordinating the production. Thank you so much.
Of course,
Good.
you're very welcome. I appreciate it so much, and thank you guys all for your presentation. Your information is so inspirational and so moving, and I feel so blessed to like be able to learn so much more about hospice care in an early age of my life. So, thank you all.
And we thank Melissa Powell. I don't know if Melissa's coming aboard, but she's been helping us to regularly to assist in coordinating the slide presentations. There she is. Thank you, Melissa Powell. And we thank you, everyone who participated in this effort. Have a very blessed evening. Bye for now.